Thomas, Archdeacon of Split, claims that at the end of the 7th century, the citizens of Split, harassed by their Slav neighbors, asked the Constantinople emperor for help, and the order was sent to the Slavs that they should stop molesting the citizens. Even though this testimony is from the mid-13th century, based on what we know about the relations of local populations with Slavs in the hinterland of the Adriatic coast, this claim is probably true. Already in 678 AD, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IV, following the defeat of Arabs under the walls of the capital, received the archons, that is to say, rulers of Western peoples, with whom peace was concluded or renewed at the time. These archons certainly included representatives of Dalmatia and Illyricum Slavs, that is to say, of Serbs and Croats. What Constantine Porphyrogenitus says about the actual Serb settlement as a consequence of the deal with Heraclius could be additionally examined by establishing which diplomatic ties existed between Byzantium and Western peoples. It is known that in 624 Heraclius dispatched an envoy to the Langobards and, in 630, to the Frank king Dagobert. At the time, Franks were pushing Slavs in Moravia to leave the service of Avars. Already in 623, a separate Slav state of Caranthania was formed, led by the Duke Samo. The rule of Avars over Slavs was shaken in its core. The exchange of emissaries between Byzantium and Germanic tribes on the borders of Slavs and Avars could let Byzantine diplomacy in touch with Serbs and Croats. It is most likely that in such a way Heraclius could reach Serbs and Croats and conclude an agreement with them as federates, or allies of the empire. When Constantine Porphyrogenitus claims that Serbs left their ancient homeland led by one brother, and that part of the people remained there led by another one, it makes a lot of sense when taken into account that, according to contemporary Frank chroniclers, the Duke of the Serbs, who lived under the Alps, Dervan, joined his lands with Caranthania. Such a decision could have been the result of the weakening of the Serb tribe due to departure of the group led by other brother towards Dalmatia and Illyricum a year or two earlier. It is also interesting what Constantine Porphyrogenitus claims that Serbs settled in Dalmatia. The ancient Roman province of Dalmatia reached all the way to Čačak in what is today Western Serbia, while areas east of it belonged to the prefecture of Illyricum, which was at the time of Byzantium ruled from Thessaloniki. According to some 9th century sources, the area around the rivers Morava and Timok was already settled by other Slav tribes. Obodrites lived along the right banks of Danube, Timochans along the Timok, and Moravans along the Morava. The area of present-day Bulgaria was settled by Northerners and the League of Seven Tribes. All of these tribes will await the arrival of Bulgarians in 680 and consequently be conquered by them. Therefore, at the time of the Serb settlement, Serbia encompassed the area of present-day Bosnia and west and southwest Serbia along the rivers of Lim, Tara and Ibar. Smaller dukedoms were formed in the immediate hinterland of the Dalmatian coast from south to north: Duklja, Travunia, Zahumlja and Pagania. Constantine Porphyrogenitus wrote that pagans, Zahumlians and Travunians originated from the Serbs who moved there at the time of the Emperor Heraclius. He did not specify the tribal origin of Dukljans, but later Byzantine sources at the end of the 11th century claim that they were also of the Serb tribe. The question arises, how big actually was the Serb tribe? It is assumed that there were 100,000 Ostrogoths when they invaded Italy in 488 AD. There were around 60,000 Bulgarians when they went south of the Danube. There were 30,000 Hungarians at the time of the settlement of the Pannonian Plains. If one takes literally the words of Constantine Porphyrogenitus, that Serbs were at first settled around Servia, that area could sustain a limited number of inhabitants, perhaps between 20 and 30,000. The historical data and archaeological records helps us establish the approximate number of the inhabitants of Croatia in the early 10th century, up to 350,000. But it is impossible to establish how many of them were actual Croats, and how many ancient population. The area settled by the Serbs is huge and geographically diverse. It is quite possible that, after arriving to these areas, Serbs already encountered Slavs who acknowledged their rule. On the other hand, the Frank annalist Einhard already knew in 822 that Serbs are the people who held a large portion of Dalmatia, not the medieval one right along the Adriatic coast, but the ancient Roman province of Dalmatia, all the way to Čačak in present-day Serbia. If the faraway Frank writer knew that Serbs were settled in such a wide area, one could assume that the Serb tribe was quite numerous, probably between 50,000 and 100,000. Either that, or the process of ethnogenesis was already so far ahead by the time of Einhard's writing, so that the name of the Serb tribe also included Slavs encountered by the Serbs in Dalmatian hinterlands and in Bosnia. It is impossible to give an exact number of inhabitants. The lowest could be 20,000 and the highest 100,000.